Let me tell you about a man people only mentioned in whispers. His name was Robert King. Billionaire, investor, owner of half the buildings downtown. People said if he smiled at you, your life changed. If he frowned at you, your life ended. On a rainy Thursday night, his black car slid to a stop outside a small, cozy restaurant called Aurora's. The windows glowed warm against the dark street. Steam rose from the wet road. Inside, the clinking of cutlery and soft jazz filled the air. Behind the counter stood Emma, a young waitress in a simple black dress and a tired smile. Her sneakers were worn out. Her fingers had tiny burns from hot plates. Dark circles sat beneath her eyes, but they couldn't hide the quiet fire in them. She wasn't working here just for extra money. She was paying rent, paying for her little brother's school books, paying off her mother's hospital bills. Emma, table 5, important man. Don't mess this up, whispered Michael, the manager, tugging at his tie. Emma grabbed the tray, not yet knowing who sat at table 5. When she turned to look, she froze. There he was, Robert King. Expensive suit, sharp jawline, eyes like ice. 2 bodyguards stood nearby, arms crossed. The other customers avoided looking at him like staring at the sun. Emma swallowed. Just another customer, she told herself. He's just a person who wants food. That's all. She walked over. Good evening, sir. My name is Emma. What can I get you tonight? Robert didn't look at her at first. He kept scrolling on his phone. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your throat dry. Finally, he sighed dramatically, like her voice was an annoyance. You're already wasting my time, he said. You should have been here before I even sat down. Emma clenched her jaw, but she kept smiling. I apologize, sir. Would you like to hear our specials? He glanced up, his eyes cold and bored. I don't care about your specials. Just bring me the best steak you have. Medium rare. And don't overcook it like the last idiot who served me in this city. A few customers flinched at his tone. Emma nodded. Of course, sir. As she turned away, she heard him mutter to his guest, a nervous-looking business partner sitting opposite him. People in this place are all the same. Weak, slow, replaceable. The words stabbed, even though they weren't meant for her. Emma felt her cheeks burn, but she kept walking. Back in the kitchen, she placed the order, trying to keep her hands steady. Michael rushed over. Emma, that's Robert King. Don't upset him. If he complains, we're finished. This restaurant can't survive a bad review from him. Emma nodded, but inside, something twisted. So one man can destroy everyone's work with a single sentence? And everyone just accepts that? She peeked through the kitchen window and watched Robert snap his fingers at another waiter who passed by. Just to demand a glass of water, he could have politely requested. The waiter almost tripped in his hurry. Everyone moved faster when Robert was in the room. Everyone laughed at his rude jokes. Everyone pretended not to notice the insults. Everyone feared him. Except Emma. She didn't fear him. Not yet. But she was about to learn why everyone else did. And one day soon, she was going to be the only one brave enough to stop him and humiliate him in front of every single person watching. The steak sizzled on the grill while rain tapped against the kitchen windows. Table 5. Rush it, Michael urged. He's already checking his watch. Emma breathed slowly. You can do this. Just serve. Smile. Survive the shift. When the plate was ready, perfectly arranged with roasted potatoes and butter-glazed vegetables, she carried it out with both hands. Every step toward him felt heavy. As she reached the table, Robert was in the middle of tearing apart someone on the phone. I don't care what your excuse is, he snapped. If the numbers don't match tomorrow morning, you're gone. I don't pay for failure. He ended the call with a flick of his wrist. Not even a goodbye. Your steak, sir, Emma said softly. He barely glanced at the plate before sneering. That took long enough. Do you people move in slow motion here? Emma forced her lips upward. Is there anything else I can get for you? Yes, he said, leaning back. Teach your staff how to run a business. Oh wait, you can't. Because none of you have ever seen real money. His business partner, Daniel, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Robert, maybe we should." "Silence." Robert cut him off. "You're the one begging me to save your company, remember?" The restaurant went quieter. People were pretending not to listen, but every ear was turned toward that table. Emma bit her tongue. She wanted to say something, anything, but she knew the rules. Don't talk back. Don't argue. Just serve. She turned to leave when she heard a familiar ringtone, her phone buzzing in the pocket of her apron. Her heart jumped. It was the hospital. Again. Michael noticed and frowned. "Emma, not now," he whispered. "You know the policy." I just need 1 minute," she pleaded. Before Michael could answer, Robert's voice sliced through the air. "What's going on?" he demanded. Emma froze. The whole restaurant watched. "She wants to take a call," Michael said quickly. "It won't happen again, Mr. King. I assure you." Robert smirked. "Of course it won't. Because if she leaves this floor, I leave this restaurant. And believe me, you can't afford that." Emma's fingers curled around the phone in her pocket. The call stopped. A missed call. Her stomach twisted. What if it's about Mom? What if it's serious? But she stood there, rooted, staring at the billionaire who thought a human life was less important than his stake. "Don't just stand there. Get me another glass of wine," Robert said. "And this time, try not to shake. It's embarrassing to watch." A few diners exchanged glances. Someone looked down at their plate, ashamed for not saying anything. Emma nodded stiffly and walked away. In the staff room, she finally checked her phone. A voicemail. Hands trembling, she pressed play. "Hello. This is Nurse Julia from St. Mary's Hospital. We're calling about your mother. We need to discuss her latest test results. Please call us back as soon as possible." The world blurred for a moment. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. She couldn't cry. Not here. Not now. She stared at her reflection in the small mirror by the lockers. "Why do people like him get everything?" she whispered. "And treat everyone like nothing?" Her reflection didn't answer. She wiped her face, straightened her apron, and walked back out. As she stepped into the dining area, Robert's voice echoed again. "The workers in this city are pathetic," he was saying loudly. "You pay them a few pennies and they still find a way to mess things up." Something inside Emma snapped, just a little. She didn't say anything yet, but a crack had appeared. And once a crack starts, it doesn't stop. It spreads, until everything shatters. The night grew busier. More customers, more orders, more noise. But at table 5, everything revolved around Robert King. He sent back a dish because it was too warm. He complained his water had too much ice. He snapped his fingers whenever he wanted something, like the staff were dogs. Emma watched a new waiter make a tiny mistake. He placed the bread basket on the wrong side of the table. Robert flicked a crumb off his sleeve and raised his voice. "Unbelievable," he scoffed. "Do they hire you straight from the street? Maybe if you learned how to read, you'd know what side the bread goes on." The waiter's ears turned red. He stammered, "I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again." Robert smirked. "You're right, because if you do it again, you won't work anywhere in this district. I own most of it." A few people laughed weakly. Others looked away. Emma felt heat rising in her chest. She wanted to say, "He's just a kid trying to work." She wanted to say, "You don't get to talk to people like that." But she was still quiet, until he crossed a line he never should have crossed. Later that night, a mother entered the restaurant with a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The girl wore a simple dress and held a small, worn-out teddy bear. They looked tired, like they'd had a long day. They were seated at a table near Robert. The little girl dropped her teddy by accident. It rolled a bit and stopped near Robert's polished shoes. She hurried over, bent down to pick it up, and bumped his chair slightly. Just slightly. Robert's eyes flared. "Watch where you're going," he snapped. The girl flinched, clutching the teddy to her chest. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, voice shaking. Her mother rushed over, bowing her head. "I'm so sorry. She didn't mean." "Then teach her to walk properly," Robert snarled. "God." This city is full of useless people raising useless children. The restaurant went dead silent. Even the music seemed to fade. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. Her mother's shoulders sagged with humiliation. Emma's heart pounded so hard it hurt. That was it. She couldn't stay quiet anymore. She stepped forward, her voice barely controlled. "Sir, she's just a child." She apologized. Robert's cold gaze snapped to Emma. "Did I ask for your opinion?" he said slowly. His tone sent a chill through the room. "You work here to serve," he continued, "not to speak. Remember your place." Emma's chest rose and fell. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, in that heavy silence, she realized something. Everyone was scared of him. Everyone, except her. Her hands were still trembling, yes. Her voice was unsteady, yes. But her fear was now smaller than her anger. And anger, when mixed with courage, becomes something powerful. She took a slow breath. "Maybe someone needs to remind you of your place," she whispered. Robert's eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" Every head turned. Forks hovered in midair. Even the kitchen doors stopped swinging. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. This was the beginning of the moment everyone would remember. The moment a waitress would bring a billionaire to his knees, in front of the whole restaurant. Emma could feel her heart trying to escape her chest, but she didn't look away. She spoke louder this time, her voice shaking but clear. "I said," she repeated. "Maybe someone needs to remind you of your place, Mr. King." Robert leaned back, amused. "My place?" he laughed. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "Yes," Emma said. "A man who thinks money gives him the right to crush anyone he wants." A soft gasp traveled through the room. Michael tried to rush forward. "Emma, that's enough. Go to the back. Now." But Emma didn't move. She was done being silent. Robert smirked. "You're brave for a waitress. Brave and stupid. Do you know how many businesses I've shut down? How many people I've fired? I could have this place closed by tomorrow morning." Emma took a step closer to his table. "And yet," she said quietly, "for someone so powerful, you still seem very, very small." The words hung in the air. His jaw tightened. "Careful." Emma nodded toward the mother and little girl, who were still standing nearby, eyes wide. "You humiliated a child," Emma said, "in front of everyone, just because your chair moved. You threaten a young waiter's job over bread. You think fear is respect. But all these people here," she gestured around the room, "they're not impressed by you. They're just scared." Robert scoffed. "They're smart. They know better than to bite the hand that feeds them." "Feeds them?" Emma laughed softly, bitterly. "You don't feed them. They serve you. They cook your meals, clean your offices, drive your cars, bring your coffee, build your buildings. Without them, you'd be sitting in an empty room, yelling at your own reflection." Murmurs spread through the restaurant. One man nodded slightly. Another customer whispered, "She's right." Robert noticed. His face darkened. For the first time, he looked unsure. "You think these people care about you?" he snapped. "They'd take my place if they could." "Maybe," Emma said, "but I don't think they'd act like this." She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out her phone. "I know who you are, Mr. King," she continued. "The whole city does. You're on magazine covers, in interviews, talking about values and community, and supporting the working class." She tapped on her screen and then held it up. Played one of his interviews on max volume. On the video, Robert smiled confidently at the camera. "We're nothing without our workers," Video Robert said. "Every person, from the waiter to the CEO, deserves respect." The irony hit like a slap. People turned from the phone screen to the real Robert sitting in front of them, the same man who had just called them pathetic. Emma lowered the phone slowly. "You say all the right things when the cameras are on," she said. "But when you think no one important is watching, this is who you really are." The room went silent. Then, something unexpected happened. The young waiter Robert insulted earlier stepped closer. "She's right," he said. "You treat us like we're trash. You clicked your fingers in my face. Another staff member nodded. You called me useless last month because your coffee was too hot, she added. Even Daniel, his business partner, shifted uncomfortably. Robert, he said quietly, maybe you should. Don't you dare, Robert snapped. I built your company. You all work for people like me. Emma shook her head. No, she said calmly. You're a customer in our space tonight. We're not your servants. We're human beings. She turned to the crowd. If any of you have ever been talked down to, threatened or humiliated by men like him, you know how it feels. People exchanged looks. A few raised their hands slightly. A woman at the back said, every day at my job. Another man muttered, my boss is the same. Robert looked around, seeing not fear now, but disappointment, disgust, resistance. His power in that room was slipping, and he knew it. His cheeks flushed red. You think this will hurt me? He growled at Emma. You're a nobody, a waitress. Emma smiled sadly. Maybe I am a nobody to you, she replied. But tonight, in front of all these people, everyone finally sees who you are. Not a leader, not a genius, just a scared, angry man who only knows how to step on others to feel tall. It was a clean, sharp strike, and it hit. The humiliation didn't come from screaming or swearing. It came from truth, spoken in front of everyone. The billionaire who thought everyone feared him was now the one being silently judged by dozens of eyes. He looked around and saw it. For the first time, Robert King looked small. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the rain against the glass and the soft hum of the air conditioning. Robert stood up slowly, his chair scraping the floor. His eyes were wild, searching for someone, anyone, to step in and defend him. No one did. Michael, the manager, swallowed hard and finally spoke. Sir, maybe it's best if you call it a night. It was polite, but everyone knew what it meant. You're not welcome here. Not like this. Robert scoffed, grabbing his coat. You'll regret this, he muttered. Every single one of you. But even his threats sounded weaker now. He threw a few bills on the table, far more than the bill, but not out of generosity. It was a last attempt at power. Money as a weapon. Emma didn't touch it. Keep your money, she said quietly. We're not for sale. His jaw clenched. For a second, it looked like he might explode again. But he just turned and stormed out. The glass door swung shut behind him. His car sped away, tires hissing on the wet road. Inside, the restaurant remained still. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. It was the young waiter. Then another staff member. Then a customer. Then another. Soon, the whole restaurant was applauding. Not because Emma had been rude, but because she had done what they were all too afraid to do. She had stood up. Her knees felt weak. Her hands trembled. She hadn't done it for applause. She had done it because she couldn't live with herself if she stayed silent. Michael walked up to her, eyes shining. That was insane, he said. You know he could still try to hurt this place. Emma nodded. I know. Do I regret it? She asked herself aloud, then shook her head. No, I don't. The mother of the little girl came over. Thank you, she said softly. No one ever speaks up for people like us. Emma smiled. You don't deserve to be spoken to like that. No one does. The little girl hugged Emma around the waist suddenly. You're brave, she whispered. Emma's throat tightened. She gently patted the girl's hair. So are you. Later that night, after closing, Emma checked her phone. She had another voicemail from the hospital. This time, the nurse's voice was lighter. Good evening, Emma. We received your mother's test results. There are still challenges ahead, but there's good news. The treatment is working better than expected. We'll discuss options tomorrow, but don't lose hope. Emma sank into a chair, tears falling freely now. It had been a hard night, a dangerous night, but maybe it had also been a turning point. She wiped her eyes and looked around the empty restaurant. Aurora's wasn't just a place where people ate. It was a place where people tried, worked, fought to survive. And tonight, at least once, they didn't let money crush their dignity. Days later, whispers spread around the city. People at other restaurants said, "Did you hear what happened?" Some waitress stood up to Robert King. Office workers shared the story during lunch. Taxi drivers repeated it to new passengers. Slowly, the legend grew. And then something even stranger happened. Robert King disappeared from the public eye for a little while. No interviews, no speeches, no new photos in the news. When he finally showed up again, he was different. Less smiling for the cameras, more listening. Some said he started treating his staff better. Others said he began funding employee support programs instead of just talking about them. Was it guilt? Shame? Fear of losing his image? No one knew. But Emma knew one thing. For one night, in one small restaurant, the billionaire who everyone feared had been forced to face himself. Not by another billionaire, not by a politician, but by a tired, underpaid waitress who refused to stay silent. And that was enough to shake his world. If you were in Emma's place, standing in front of a powerful, arrogant person who could ruin your job and your future, backhand index pointing right, would you have stayed quiet to protect yourself? Or spoken up like she did to protect others? Even if it cost you everything? Let me know in the comments. What would you do and why?